Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. This is episode 245, Logan Lucky from 2017. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too, and this episode is brought to you by Target. Their Good and Gather store brand 12 ounces of frozen cauliflower are priced so well, they're practically a steal at $139. Shout out to Target.
Well, shout out to Target and to Cauliflower, and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. After the break, we'll be talking about Logan Lucky, but first, Joe, extracurricular activities. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
Nothing of super note. Rachel and I have never finished Better Call Saul, so we're blowing through that still.
Cool.
I think we're on season 4 now. How many seasons were there? Do you know?
The one that's on now that is airing its final part in 2 weeks is season 6.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. I might actually catch up right before the end, or I'll catch up right after the end.
Yeah, the finale is like mid-August, so you kind of have plenty of time depending on how quickly you're going.
We're going pretty quick, so that's a fair amount. Hockey season ended. The Colorado Avalanche won, blowing the Tampa Bay Lightning streak of winning 2 in a row. Stopped them from 3. I was very happy about that. That was about it, man. I've been laying low. Going back to visit my parents this weekend, so I'll have updates, I'm sure, when I get back.
Holiday weekend.
Yeah, 4th of July weekend. So until then, I have just been relaxing. That's about it. How about you?
I saw last Thursday night, I went to the theaters to see The Black Phone, which is the new horror movie with Ethan Hawke, directed by Scott Derrickson. I did not like it. It seems like another one, kind of like X, where like the internet's like, oh my god, this movie's great. And I'm like, not really.
Okay.
I was annoyed. Like, I feel like they're like letting. I feel like they set things up that they don't pay off, and it just was underwhelming. I was hoping for a cool thing. Like it's adapted from a short story by Stephen King's son Joe Hill, so it's kind of got Stephen King vibes.
Okay.
But I don't know. I did not love it, which I was kind of bummed by because I was looking forward to it. But then on Saturday, the Mikester came down because he and I had a movie date. We went to go see Elvis, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. Because it's not only we have the Elvis podcast, but we also have the Tom Hanks podcast, and he plays Colonel Tom Parker. And this movie is very long and exhausting, but very fun. So we put out an episode. We recorded after we came back from the movies. We recorded an episode. I edited it, put it out that day.
How long is the movie that it's very long in your
2
opinion?
hours and 40 minutes.
So 3 hours long, yeah, almost 3 hours long.
Well, I mean, there's no credit scenes. So like once the credits roll, you can just sort of bail, but. The movie is because it's Baz Luhrmann who did like Romeo plus Juliet, and he did The Great Gatsby, he did Moulin Rouge, like he did all these movies, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing is like so because it's song, this, that, whatever, like all this spectacle, whatever. It's fun to watch, but I was just like, ooh, this is a lot. Like let me see, like we've got to be like near the end or whatever. And I looked at my watch, and we were an hour in. I was like, oh my god, there's so much more to that. And then I checked again. We were only half an hour later, so we still had more than an hour left. I'm like, what is happening here? But it's really fun. Mike and I both really liked it. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if that matters.
It's fun, so it's not like a dark Elvis movie. It's more upbeat.
Oh no, it's definitely depressing, but it's just the way that because I mean Elvis's life was, because what's interesting about this, what we had heard and was true, is that it's about Elvis, but it's also about Colonel Tom Parker, who was this like the guy who like basically wormed his way into being Elvis's manager and took half of all of Elvis's earnings. And so it's told through that perspective, and so it's all sort of heavy like that. And Elvis didn't have a very happy life, but it's fun, man. And Austin Butler is great as Elvis. So I would say I don't know if you need to see it on the big screen, but I think hearing it with great sound will, because it's like a musical basically, will be great. So I highly recommend, in some form, at some point, watching Elvis.
Rachel said that inappropriate for today that Elvis's family, including Riley Keough, said that the guy that played Elvis, who did you just say?
Austin Butler. You know who he is, right? Do you know who he is?
It sounds familiar, but go ahead, remind me.
Vanessa Hudgens' ex-boyfriend.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
They were together for like a while.
I wonder if Vanessa Hudgens is still dating Cole Tucker now
as far
that
as I know,
he's in
she
Arizona. Okay, good for them. But yeah, she was saying that everybody said that he did a good job and that the movie was well portrayed.
Yeah, Lisa Marie and Priscilla and Riley all were like, this is a great movie, a great performance. Thank you for doing it justice. So yeah, which is good because like that's worrisome, right? But
yeah, and we've been on the other side of that where they're like, the family doesn't say anything about it or says that it's not representative, or like the Gucci movie, they're short fat peoples that played them.
Then after that, we did a bonus episode for this show for the Hot Rock for the Patreon. So if you are not a patron, go to toofast2forever.com for that.
And the movie was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both really enjoyed it. I actually just pitched it to one of my coworkers that watches a lot of movies. I asked him if he'd ever seen it. He'd never heard of it. And I was like, Robert Redford in a great heist movie in the 70s. It should be more of a cult movie than it is. Check it out. So,
yeah. I think that's basically it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I did, after having a month worth of recap of me going to another continent and seeing all this different stuff, just like, I didn't really do much, but it's just back to normal. But we have a Patreon, the aforementioned Patreon page here on the show, Too Fast, TooForever.com. Shout out to Cassie Wilson, Ben Milliman, Nick Burris, Alex Ellenin, Justin Kleinman, Brian Rodriguez of High School Slumber Party, Haley Gerbies, Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke Hayden, Renato Di Donato, Michael McGann, Lane Middleton, Lindsay Lewandowski, Nate Milton of the Kings of Sport, Jason Rainey, and mother of her second child, Jessica Collins, a.k.a. Montez. Shout out to Montez, who, last episode, we had Duke have his second child, his wife had a second child, and then Montez had her second baby.
Two houses last time. Now we had 2 babies this time.
Lots of big things happening to our patrons. If you want good life things to happen to you, just support us at toofast2forever.com, and big things happen, apparently. So go do that thing, please, and thank you. We also have an email address, family@cageclub.me. So we have 2 comments on the Patreon post and 1 email. But I also do want to say, after we did our 3 episodes, our commentary episodes while I was in Europe, I put a poll on Patreon. I was like, do you want, as Patreon bonus episodes, more commentaries, like in place of, because like, if you don't know, a perk of the Patreon is that we do a bonus episode each month that will never be on the main feed. So if you want even more of the show, once a month, whatever, it's always there, toofast2forever.com. And I put a poll up. I said, do you want more of that? Like, do you want commentaries instead? And overwhelmingly response, yes. So if you like the commentaries that we did in the last couple episodes, if you want more of those, join the Patreon, toofast2forever.com. I don't know how often we'll do them, but, every couple of months maybe we'll do one instead of the regular episodes. So that's to say, thank you all for voting on that. Also, voting for the Hall of Fame is now open, cageclub.me/bracket while I'm on the voting thing. But
oh, yeah, I voted. That's true.
There's the perk. If you like the idea of the commentaries, if you like listening to them, engaging with them, watching along, however you enjoyed them, if you want more of those, toofast2forever.com for our Patreon. But 2 people commented on our recent episode with Iffy, Wadiway, and Jerry first said, Sir Lewis Hamilton in a Fast movie? Absolutely. So we were talking about adding F1, and he's down.
It was a thought that I had that we were talking about last episode that I don't know, it fits so perfect, how has it not happened yet?
Yeah, I agree.
This is also one of these things that it's very likely that they add an F1 driver, and very likely that it's Lewis Hamilton very soon, and I will be convinced they were listening to us, and probably has nothing to do with us.
No, nothing ever has anything to do with us, but it would be cool to take credit for it.
If it happens, I'm taking full credit for it.
I don't think it's your idea. I think it's Iffy's idea, but you can take all the credit you want.
I brought it up, and I led him right to the water, man. So.
All right. And then Jason also commented on that post and said, crying, laughing emoji, my movie watching choices definitely deserve to be put on blast. But like Joe 2 said, you've got to expand your palette. And that's in response to us ragging on him for watching, what's it, Ghosts of Girlfriends Past or whatever that movie was that we watched. So
he actually sent me a message on Twitter about that, and he asked for some Lifetime recommendations. I pointed them out because I always bring some fun high school themed ones to High School Slumber Party, so I pointed him out to those, and then gave him wrongly titled, because I forgot the name of it, but my favorite Lifetime movie of all time is Casualties of Love.
Oh, the Long Island Lolita story.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite Lifetime movies of all time.
Yeah. If Joe gives you a movie recommendation, the chance the title is right is just about 70%.
I also have all my own
Google
titles.
The plot a little bit to figure it out sometimes.
We just watched Snowflake Mountain on Netflix, and to me that was just outdoor babies. And it's not like actual babies, it's like babies as in spoiled adults. But did you hear about this?
No, I don't know what this is.
They take a bunch of like 20 to 28-year-olds.
Okay.
That are like spoiled, live at home children, right? And they tell them they're going to like dope influencer island, and they just take them camping.
Okay.
And their reactions are pretty much what you'd expect. But it's like all of these like very useless mid 20-year-olds being with like two outdoorsmen, and they're like, okay, today you're gonna like learn how to start a fire with a stick, and they're like, well, we can't do this.
So it's like Naked and Afraid or Alone, but like the opposite.
Yeah, it's just
Kind of.
outdoor babies camping.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And we blew through the show in one day. Sorry, this is like now part of an update, but we blew through the show in one day, and it starts out like you hate all of these people, right? Like they are useless. It ends way more wholesome than I ever imagined it could. Like they're not insufferable forever.
Okay.
I don't even know how long they're out there for. It feels like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but you see these people like change their lives in like 3 weeks.
It reminds me, and I know it's not this at all, but it reminds me of that episode of Nathan For You where he's like, he advertises at the gas station, like free gas, but you have to go up the mountain. You have to like have this like personal spiritual like awakening. Did you watch Nathan For You? Do you remember that episode?
I remember Nathan For You. I don't remember that episode.
It was like he advertised a huge sign outside of a gas station and said like free gas. And there was like very tiny asterisk. And then all these people were coming inside to pay. And like, where's my free gas? And they're like, oh no, you have to like go up a mountain and have your receipt validated and blah, blah, blah. And like 4 people did it. Like they did this entire like 1-day excursion to like save $35 or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
while they were up there, they all like bonded and like sort of like had a great time. But
This sounds vaguely familiar now, but yeah, it does.
it was very cool. So the tilder is Google Joe's movie recommendations. Is that how we got there? Oh yeah.
Yeah, just because I call them different weird
Yes.
things that aren't probably the right title. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the email we have is from Wes, subject line F4 and Han's Resurrection. What up, fam?
What up, Wes? How are you doing, bud?
Says, I'm a little behind on the podcast right now. Well, how dare you? But you brought up something in the Tokyo Drift commentary. Oh, you're not that far behind. That I wanted to write in about because I actually know the answer. You were wondering where in the process the idea for bringing Han back came up. Well, Justin Lin said in an EW podcast last year before F9 came out. I don't remember all the details, but he said after he finished Tokyo Drift, Universal offered him F4. He talked about how he wasn't interested and he felt like Tokyo Drift was his one studio film he would do, and he's ready to go back to making indie movies. Okay. I don't remember if he'd already turned them down or he was planning on it, but he and Sung Kang were driving to San Francisco and they stopped at an Arby's. I remember Arby's because he said big moments in his life always seem to happen at Arby's, even though he rarely goes.
That's weird. Arby's is like pivotal to Justin Lin's life. That's
they
pretty
have
cool.
The meats and the big moments.
I guess, yeah.
When they were eating, a group of kids came over and were freaking out about seeing Han from Tokyo Drift. After they got back in the car, Justin said something about it being too bad they killed Han, and Sung made a comment about how he didn't have to be gone. Oh, so it's Sung's idea. Then they hammered out the general idea of how to bring Han back, and he called Universal and said he would do the movie if they could make that happen. So there you go. Thank you, Arby's.
Well, yeah, okay. That's cool. That they were just like stoked. Some kids were just like so stoked that they were like, well, we just fucking. He doesn't have to die. It's a movie, right? So
yeah. So shout out to kids and Arby's and San Francisco or whatever.
And Sung Kang, yeah.
And that's all the emails for today. If you want to email in family@cageclub.me and we will read it on the next episode. Joe, on the streets news about the Fast and Furious, the only thing that I have is something that ties into that story we just told. The Mona Lisa, the Mazda RX-7, is back in F10 Fast X.
That is very cool. I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm glad that you posted the picture. In some picture of one of the cars, maybe Reaction Rocket tagged us in it, or somebody on Twitter tagged us in one. I could see like a hood of what looked like a Han painted RX-7.
Okay.
And I mentally made a note of it, and then obviously forgot by the time the episode came out. But yeah, that's awesome that we got it confirmed, and it's very, very cool and iconic. The paint style is great, so like, yeah, bring back the veil side. That's very cool.
For sure. Is there any news that you have seen in the last week?
No, but I have been continually haunted by the facts of life.
True, which
we talked about it
doesn't really make sense on the Patreon bonus episode, but
yeah,
Joe's being haunted by a 30-year-old TV show.
I am.
40-year-old TV show, maybe. Yeah.
I said it on the Patreon episode. We've been watching a lot of Facts of Life. Edna from the Facts of Life was in the last movie we covered.
Oh, so this is not Fast and Furious news. This is just podcast news.
Yeah, podcast adjacent news, and then but like it's a 30-year-old show that like I was just reintroducing to Rachel because it plays on Logo during the day.
Yeah.
Tootie from the show was on the Today Show yesterday, so like 2 days in a row I had the facts of life haunting me. So
if you have news that you want to share with us, just tweet at us, like tag us on Twitter or email in or whatever. I think like we're in another like sort of slow lull as they're filming. I was remembering. I don't remember. I don't know how I forgot or why I remember, but I was like, oh right, Brie Larson is gonna be in the new movie too. Like I feel like we're so focused on like Momoa and this and that and whatever, but it's like Brie Larson too. So Rita Moreno, man, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be big.
I'm excited.
With all that casting news, I did not say it for that reason. Is Dwayne Johnson back? Is he coming back? Is he in Fast X?
Nope.
The only thing to do before we take a break is the Fast and Furious Minute, the Too Fast, Too Furious Minute. Thankfully, no longer in the Pearl. I should have named this minute "We're No Longer in the Pearl" or something like that. But minute 65, I think one of Wes's favorite lines from the movie.
I love it.
I'm a low-budget mechanic, but I overcharge.
She grabbed dude's head.
She had to, man. He was testing her. You gotta remember, her ass was on the line, just like ours.
Now you feeling this girl way too much. She just like that crazy-ass trailer rat from back in the day, Tanya.
Tanya? Man, you went out with her after I did.
I mean, I couldn't let it go to waste.
I got you.
Is that right?
See, we can race for cash, but when I step on the gas, my nitrous go blast, leave your ass in the past. And Tej, you about to lose your garage.
Whatever, man. Oh, whatever.
I'm a low-budget mechanic, but I overcharge. Pay me. Let's go, man. Give me my money. I told you, man. Switch
I'm
style.
happy, man. I'm so glad. This nigga's my garage, boy. Royal Flush. Give me this, man.
Yeah.
Y'all talk to him, man.
Damn, you can't play it for long. Put that money back on the table. You know it's my next hand.
Jimmy, how you ever gonna pay me back if you keep losing to Tej like that? How you doing, bro?
Real.
I'm gonna crash, Tej. I'll catch you tomorrow.
So in this minute now at Tej's garage, Brian and Roman walk over to an outdoor table where Tej, Suki, and Jimmy are playing poker alongside a mystery woman. Which is
that's
weird,
big.
right? That reminded me of you being like, hey, there's other people in the room. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, in the Pearl when we found that other guy for no reason. It just there's more people than we thought.
Mm-hmm. I was like, who is this? Because it's like, is it? My brain first went to Kara. Martha.
Kara Murtha. We called her
Murtha.
Kara. Yeah, it's the same person, but we called her
whoever that
Kara
is. But like,
Murtha.
that's not this universe. That's the Los Bandoleros. That's the Fast and Furious number 4.
Yeah.
So I don't know who this is. Maybe that's No Knees Denise.
Yes, and we get the other reference to a mystery girl. Go ahead.
Also in this minute, Brian and Roman talk about Monica's actions at the Pearl as to try to make sense of things. Jimmy brags and freestyles about his poker hand, only to see Tej win with a royal flush. Brian says goodnight to Tej and the group as he heads to bed as night becomes morning in a transition as the minute ends. This is another perfectly timed minute that ends at the end of a scene. I opened up on Amazon Prime because like I have all the digital copies like linked to my movies anywhere, and so like I have them all on Prime, and so I opened up because there was a couple subtitle things that I couldn't parse, and I was like, oh, like it just becomes like it's a beautiful transition from like the night where they are now into the next morning. Literally, we get like 2 frames of it in this minute, like you can barely see it, but we're like, this is another end of the minute, end of the scene, very nicely succinct, perfect timing, ending, whatever.
Yes, very very nice.
But what did you notice here? We're finally not in the Pearl anymore. What now that we have actual things to look at? What's going on in this scene?
We have a new card that we hadn't seen before. Pontiac Sunfire's up on the racks. I got the racks. They are rotary lift racks in Tej's garage. 2 interesting things were, why is there a Sobe drink sign on the side of Tej's garage? Makes no sense.
SpawnCon, baby.
Yeah. Sign that they walked by that I couldn't make out all the inside wording.
Okay.
But it's for Mercury outboard motors. So Tej's garage is on. We know it's on water, right? We've established that when they had the boat race outside.
Yeah.
But this is more than just a car garage. He's selling boat motors too. So Tej is working on anything that moves. Essentially, it feels like.
This is not true, but I have fan theory, sort of. You know, in Fate of the Furious, where before the Cuban Mile, Dom is showing Letty that he's like, that's a boat engine. She goes, no way. Like, what if that's Tej installing that.
Oh, like Tej spent time in Cuba, and he was the one who did the boat engine conversion.
Yeah, it would be more fun if like Tej was no longer in the I want him in the franchise, but like it'd be more like if it was just like, oh, where did he go? Like he's not in the movies anymore. Like, oh, that's his trademark. He's also good with boat engines. He's like doing this like mad scientist shit or whatever. But like he's around. Like we don't need to have backstory for Tej because he's still here, right? But like,
also these are like propeller engines for like fishing boats, not diesel tugboat engines. You know what I mean? Which was like in the car. So I don't think you could run a car with like a propeller little boat engine. But I just thought it was interesting that we've never thought about it before. But Tej is like, we see the jet skis and boats and stuff, but like Tej apparently sells or supplies or somehow deals with boat engines too. Weird. It's like an all around garage. That's pretty cool.
I mean, when your thing is circuits,
yeah,
all
exactly.
circuits, baby.
Yeah, so then I got a bunch of other signs that are in the shop. I got a bunch of stuff that's on the table, which is kind of confusing. You know, they have dominoes as paperweights for the cards, but they're playing cards. But
okay.
You know what I mean? Like, they have dominoes, but they're not playing dominoes. They're playing cards, but then some people have their cards under the dominoes. And there's a CD player that's like a portable personal CD player, but they're listening to music. And there's obviously other people around, so there's like a sound system go. So, like, was one person at the table listening to their own music in the middle of a party while they were playing cards/dominoes? It doesn't make any sense. There's 3 solo cups and one like plastic cup in a can that might be Sobe. I would assume it would be Sobe since we just passed the Sobe sign, but I don't know. The most fascinating thing that I'm glad that you caught too was that there's a mystery woman at this poker table that we don't see her face of. I think that that's a great candidate for the question, and I'm glad that you already had it as one of our options.
Obviously, this podcast has spent a lot of time, and by this podcast, I mean you and me, have spent a lot of time talking about No Knees Denise, because that one line, throwaway line in Furious 7, it's just like, wait, what? But here, and this is something we knew
I like
about.
that too. I definitely like that as an option too, because that would be easy to make answers for, like, who is he talking about? Like, No Knees Denise, and her hood and that named Tanya, right?
Yeah, that crazy-ass trailer rat from back in the day, Tanya. And Brian says, Tanya, man, you went out with her after I did. And he says, I couldn't let her go to waste, which is, you know, weird and kind of gross, but also a little funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have No Knees Denise, we have Tanya. I would imagine the way they're talking about each, Tanya and Denise probably know each other.
There's a high likelihood that I didn't think about till you just brought that up, bud.
Yeah.
From school, but I mean, if they knew both of them, like, there's a good chance that they had met at some point.
Because if we think about it right now, like in 2003 in the movie, if we've moved it forward or whatever, like they're like 22, 23-ish. Like there's not like a huge window. Like if they met in, you know, juvie when they were like 12 or whatever, like there's not a ton of time.
12 is early too. I'm thinking like probably minimum 14, right?
Yeah. So like it's just high school. Like it's just the way that they're talking about it. Like it just feels like this is the same period of time that they're both in bars. They're both wherever, right? Like it just.
Yeah.
I still think, like, the funniest thing to me, and it's not supposed to be funny, but, like, you know, Jimmy's so confident he's going to win this poker hand, and then Tej's like, nah, man, royal flush. The odds of getting a royal flush in poker are 1 in 2.598 million hands.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Tej is probably cheating.
Maybe the only, like, thing I can logic out of that doesn't help much is that he got a straight flush, not a royal flush, and just
Jimmy?
said royal. No, Tej.
Oh, no. I feel like... So there was an episode of The Simpsons. Oh, by the way, this is another TV update in the middle of this. I'm now in season 12 of The Simpsons, 5 of King of the Hill, and I started Curb Your Enthusiasm, which I'm not liking yet. Do you watch Curb? Have you watched Curb?
I've watched episodes of Curb, and it was never as good as Seinfeld to me.
It's not the kind of comedy that I like. I mean, I'm going to stick around for a while at least, but, like, it's not clicking, because it's not like Seinfeld.
It's not. It's absolutely not. It's something completely different. I have friends that loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it when it was on. Love it still. It didn't hit as hard for me because I think Larry David's a better writer than actor.
Yeah, well, it's just like the whole, like, what he's doing, like, what he's good at as an actor is not what I enjoy, like, the whole awkward situation. Like, it's not awkward in a Jerry kind of, like, where it's, like, they're getting themselves. It is, but it's not. Like, it's to describe it, it sounds the same. I don't know. People have seen. The reason I bring this up now, not to talk about Curb, but in an episode of The Simpsons I just watched, they're playing poker, And he's like, oh, I have 4 aces. Like, I just win. They're like, no, man, straight flush. And just like, well, in that case, like, yeah, like you would think that you would win everything with 4 aces because, like, what hand's going to be? The only thing that beats it is a straight flush. You can't have a royal flush. I mean, to get nerdy, a royal flush is a straight flush, whatever. But
yes,
with 4 aces, you can have a royal flush because the aces are all gone. But, you know, straight flush trumps it. So, like, I think the idea is just like, well, Jimmy is so confident he won, but he could just be like, oh, yo, I've got three of a kind or whatever. And he's like, no, man, I got whatever. I got a full house or whatever, right? Like, it doesn't have to be... The fact that it's a royal flush is so over the top and, like, flamboyant in a way where it's just like, come on, man, like, be realistic. Like, in a movie that, like, we have not jumped the shark in terms of, like, going to space or whatever, right? The fact that he's getting a royal flush in a casual poker game is almost the most unbelievable thing in the entire franchise.
Yeah, and if it happened and you're playing cards with anybody that's played cards before, you'd be like, holy fuck, this is like a once-in-a-lifetime thing, essentially.
And he's not even, like, excited about it. He's just happy
and he wins, like, $6.
Yeah.
It's, like, ones, so it's not even, like...
Unless they're playing with, like, what is it, like a pinochle deck where it's, like, only, like, 7 through queen or 7 through ace or whatever. Like, there's like different card games that don't use all the cards, but like you can still buy a deck of those where like they don't have like the whatever cards. Like maybe it's just that. Like maybe there's like a bunch of like a royal flush is easier. Who knows? I don't know. There's no indication of that. I'm just trying to make sense of like the most outrageous thing that's ever happened in the franchise is Tej getting a royal flush
casually on like a Friday night.
Yeah.
While he's playing cards and Brian goes to bed. Brian sees it and goes, "Yep, I'm going to bed."
Yep. Oh, you got a royal flush? Cool, man. I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
He drove Roman. I guess Roman's car's there, but she's like, hey, man, like, good luck getting home or whatever, right? Just like, I'm going to bed.
Isn't Roman sleeping at the garage at this point?
Oh, right. Yeah, I guess.
They're both home, but, like, he sleeps in the garage and Brian sleeps on the boat outside.
Did you see? So in the background, there's a table of 6 people, 3 people standing, 3 people sitting, doing something. Who knows? But then to the right of them, there's, like, 2 men talking over, like, what look like big, like, ink, like, laser printers. Do you see these or no?
There's some garage tool that I'm not sure what they were, and I think we found them in another minute when we were looking at it. I'm not sure what it is. Could be like something to fill coolant. I don't know. But it's some garage tool.
They kind of look like big ass printers. I'm like, there's no way. There's no reason that's printers, but they look like printers.
Yeah, they do. They're like a big plastic square rectangle box type situation about weight. Well, like waist height? No, even higher than that. Like
it's like the bottom is at like waist height. Like it's just basically like chest height is the whole thing, right?
Yeah. I saw it, but I couldn't make out like anything on the side of it or figure out what it is, and I don't know what place it has in a garage. It's like industrial garage shit. Like I've seen them at garages. I've never played with one or figured out or like seen one have to be used. So.
Gotcha. Okay. There's music in the background. Were you able to tell what music it was or no? Because it's too quiet. Like I can't pick it up. I can't even pick up lyrics of what's going on here.
No, I can give it another listen though. That was something that like I wasn't super
we can do it later. It's not a big deal. They also might have like some movies, and I don't know. I don't think I started the scene. I think I just jumped in the middle. Some movies will like have in the closed captioning what song starts, so maybe I'll look there. I don't know, but I don't know if this is one that does it or not. So okay. Any other thoughts before we get to the trivia question, or you want to do the trivia question?
I'm so glad we're out of the Pearl.
Yeah.
It was cool to be back. This is a great scene. I love the MC Jin rapping thing. Oh, that was the other thing. I found the hoodie that he's wearing.
Oh, yes, the Rough Riders hoodie, right? You made a...
Yeah, it's a Rough Riders logo. They don't sell the same sweatshirt anymore, obviously, but you could buy a Rough Riders hoodie, which is actually fucking awesome.
Cool.
There's a black one. If it's zipped up, I would really, really be tempted to buy one. But they're pullover hoodies, and you could still get Rough Riders hoodies, apparently.
Cool. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know. I can't place what the next scene is. Like, I know what's left in the movie, but I don't know what's immediately next.
Yeah. I can't tell you either. I couldn't tell you.
Because we have, like, a decent amount left, but we are in the home stretch, so I don't know. Who knows? But we'll find out next week on the next episode. Okay, so for the trivia question, I have 3 here. I feel like after being trapped in the Pearl, literally and metaphorically, and struggling to come up with questions, we could do more than one if we think there's more than one. But here's the trivia questions. What's the name of the, quote, crazy-ass trailer rat that both Brian and Roman dated? The name is Tanya.
I really like that, yeah.
What hand does Tej have that beats Jimmy in the poker game, which I think is kind of easy. We might not want to do that, but that's a royal flush.
Yes.
And then how many people are at the poker table when Brian and Roman arrive at Tej's garage? And the answer is 4.
I think that this is actually a good candidate to have, too. Because I really do enjoy
drop the middle one, though, right?
Yep, for sure. Yeah.
So I need 4. We can do Denise. We can do
Denise.
Tanya.
Tanya. Kara.
Okay.
Kara Murtha. And they mentioned one other girl, and I can't fucking remember her name.
Like earlier?
Yeah, I feel like it was like right when they like met at the demolition derby. I feel like they mentioned a different girl. I don't remember her name though.
I'm looking back through it now.
Do they? Does that sound familiar to you?
Not really, but
Yeah, I feel like at some point in the movie they mentioned another girl's name too, because we were like, oh, like look, I feel like they were. I was like, they have another thing. So like the Denise thing is like a running joke because we heard them, and I don't know if it was the Tanya thing when we did the movie, or if it was another minute that we heard a name.
I just got to the part where it's like, both you girlies shut up when, not great dialogue there. But while I continue to look for this, what number should we do for the poker table? Should we just do 3, 4, 5, 6?
I think 2, 3, 4, 5.
2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Because it's definitely Tej and Jimmy. You probably remember Suki's there, so you're like, okay, it's 3. That puts 3 in the middle. But it's actually 4 because the weird girl's there, and you're like, it's definitely not 5. But it could be 5, and if you remember the weird girl, you're like, is there another one too?
Okay, so we can do that. I'm still looking. I don't see another girl's name. So we just give me a 4th name.
Monica? Monica.
We can do well, that's kind of easy, but that's also fine.
It felt familiar. It felt like there was another one.
So for minute 65, I'm a low-budget mechanic, but I overcharge. 2 questions. What's the name of the crazy-ass trailer rat that both Brian and Roman dated? And the answer is Tanya. And how many people are at the poker table when Brian and Roman arrive at Tej's garage? The answer is 4.
Those are good questions. They're tough but fair.
Tough but
and
fair.
Definitive. And definitive.
Joe, let's take a break and let us come back and let us talk about Logan Lucky.
Welcome back to Too Fast, Too Forever. This is episode number 245, Logan Lucky. This episode's brought to you by Target. Their Good and Gather steamin' bag cut cauliflower is a steal of a deal. Shout out to Target.
Well, shout out to Target. And before we talk about Logan Lucky, before we introduce our guest, Joe, we got a new email since we started the episode. YouTube comment, but not the original, not what you're thinking, but also not what you're thinking. For some reason, I don't know why, our Tokyo Drift Lap 3 episode has like 600,000 views.
Yes.
I don't know why. It's one that just like, I don't think people don't watch it, they
sense.
just click on it, whatever.
It's an anomaly, yeah.
But on that video, just now, the account Gaming for You simply says, WTF is this? This is a new trend, Brian. I will introduce you in a second, that like, people keep commenting, what is this, on our YouTube video, when like literally in the title of every video, it says podcast.
It starts, yeah.
It's very clearly a podcast. It says podcast everywhere you look. But people are just like, what is this? All angry. So just want to share the exciting news, share the good word, new email, shout out to Gaming for You. But with us tonight, returning guest. So, Joe, I don't know if you know the backstory here. I mean, we loved having this guy on the first time, but he was on... not our first episode. Was it our first episode? I don't remember how the show works. He was on an episode of 1999, the podcast, with me and John Brooks, because he has a whole Star Wars Empire, pun intended, maybe? And so we're like, oh, I want to have him back on, because we had him on for a core movie, and we learned about him as a taxi driver, driving around Avengers around New York City.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But we did not have him on a pit stop, and so he is here... one of the hosts of the Return of the Pod. We have back to the show, Brian Silliman. Hello, Brian.
Hi, how are you guys?
Welcome back to the show. We are good. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me.
And so when we had this moment, and Phantom Menace was episode 2, I forgot. The Matrix was first, Phantom Menace was second. I was like, oh, here's the list of movies. And you right away chose Logan Lucky, which... great pick. But what is your history of this movie? Do you like this movie? Do you love this movie? Or have you been wanting to see the movie? What is your history with Logan Lucky?
I love this movie. I saw it in the theater when it came out. I didn't know it was such a flop. I was only reading about it today, and I saw it in the theater, and I guess it was one of the few who saw it in the
I saw it
theater.
in theaters. Mm-hmm.
I did too. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't, I remember going in, I don't even think I knew it was Soderbergh, even though I like his movies. The trailer was so crazy between whatever Daniel Craig was doing and Adam Driver and the rest. I was just like, I was sold. So I went with a couple friends, and I loved it. We had such a great time, but I hadn't revisited it until you had showed me the list of the movies that you were covering,
Mm-hmm.
and that one stuck out as one that I've seen, one that I really loved, and one that I've been meaning to revisit for the longest time. So I just watched it again, and I had it even better. This is even better than I remembered it. It's just so wonderful and tight and fun, and it's just a little bit of everything. I'm a huge fan of it.
I will say that the theme that I saw among my letterboxed friends who were reviewing this movie was that it seemed that a lot of people were watching it a second time, and almost across the board, every review was just like, I don't know what I was thinking, this movie's even better than I thought, or like, I liked it even more the second time, and it just kind of grows. I feel like that's probably true of a lot of Soderbergh, because I think he's amazing at what he does, but it's so good. Anyway.
No, it was. I had just forgotten. There was a lot of movies coming out then. And it just kind of. It's not that I liked it any less. It sounds terrible. Guess I just kind of forgot. And so revisiting it, I was like, oh yes, I remember. This was fantastic. And if you're talking about heist movies, man, does it get overlooked?
Yeah,
it should have its place.
Well, I also feel like it's the thing where it's even overshadowed in his own filmography, because he did the Ocean's movies and Out of Sight, and like he's done all these other more sort of high profile heist movies that kind of gets buried. Yeah. But Joe, it's surprising to me that you saw this in theaters.
I remember seeing it in theaters, and my experience is very much like Brian's. It's almost word for word the same. That like I remember seeing it in theaters with Rachel. I remember us being like, "That was a blast. I really liked that movie," and then I totally forgot about it. Like just. Like I remember enjoying it, but then I like hadn't thought about it in a while. I couldn't tell you what happened in the movie besides like Channing being in it. So then when I rewatched it today, I was like, this is a great movie. I don't know why people don't talk about this movie more often, because it's really good. It's really fun. The cast is great. Like we were just talking about on the Hot Rock, it toes the line nicely between like it's comedic and kind of goofy, but also enjoyable, and a tight heist movie that's good and has fun stunts and interesting ways to do things. Like they all kind of play a little bumbly, but it works, and I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
So I saw this in theaters as well, 3 for 3. I feel like that's rare that us and the guests have all seen the movie in theaters. But then we did this again because we did Cinemakers, the podcast on the network that like literally no one heard. But the first season was me and Mike with Tobin, and we talked about the films of Steven Soderbergh. So I watched it again for that. I think I saw it probably one other time as well. And then we were going to do it for Magic Mike's, but we stopped the podcast before we got there. But it was another one where just like, we know that Channing's career at a certain point hits a point where like every movie is a blast. And this is right in there with that. And so that's why we picked him. I do want to make one more quick little note before we talk about the movie. So Brian did mention that this was kind of a flop in theaters. It only made $7 million its opening weekend, budget of 29. But the exciting thing, the background, I don't know if either of you know this. I'm assuming Joe doesn't. Brian, you might. The financing of this movie was like revolution. So Steven Soderbergh always does weird things, kind of just like to buck the system, but also just to see if he can do it. He shot like multiple movies on iPhones. He's done this, he's done that, whatever. But this one, he basically sold off all the rights to different things so that he would have complete creative control. So like to raise the money for this movie, he sold off foreign distribution rights. And he sold off like TV rights and HBO rights and video on demand and whatever. And so like he was pre-selling all of this stuff so he could have the money, so he didn't have to go through, a big studio, so he could make the movie he wanted to make. And eventually Universal picked it up for distribution here, whatever. Because of that, he was able to do this thing, and like even though it didn't make a lot of money, it was still like relatively successful because of this like creative way that he did it. And so he sort of always like worked around the studio system, or like been this kind of like visionary indie director, both like in front of the camera and like whatever. It's this weird kind of like he figured out a way to make a movie without having to go to Universal and having like producers be like, well, we think it would be great if instead of Adam Driver you cast like Tom Cruise, or like like one of those kind of things. Just like, no, this is the movie I want to make. I'm gonna make that. So it's true, it flopped, but it was creatively financed, and I think it was still successful because it still made worldwide like $48 million. So it's not like a ton of money, but made more than the budget. Who knows how that all panned out in the end, but Soderbergh's still making movies, so
Yeah.
It makes sense because there are things in here, and as you just mentioned, the casting, they're big for us, but is there anyone, Tom Cruise caliber that's going to anchor a thing like this? Maybe not, but there are creative choices made in this movie, some really wacky choices that's part of its charm and part of why I love it so much, that it doesn't ever play like studio notes the movie. So I'm glad they did it that way, because I think there are a lot of things that wouldn't be in the end product if it had been another way. If you
For sure.
didn't
Yeah,
have
like
that control.
Adam Driver and Channing Tatum playing a duo, right? Like how that feels very random in my head. Like as much as like they're kind of the same age, cool. Like those are two dudes I would have never put together.
Yeah. Also, my favorite scene in the movie, which I'm sure we'll get to, which is one that I forgot when I rewatched it. I was like, oh yeah, this is my favorite scene in the whole movie, and neither of the two of them are in it. I forgot it was even in there. I'm sure that would not have been in there. There's a wackiness, and it's almost Coen Brothers in a way.
sure.
It just not quite, but a little bit, in that it's wacky. They're constantly underestimated, and they shouldn't be. And yet there's this heart to it. There's this incredible heart.
So if you have not seen the movie yet, it's on Hulu to stream for free, so go do that because it's great. But a quick plot summary is: trying to reverse a family curse, brothers Jimmy and Clyde Logan set out to execute an elaborate robbery during the legendary Coca-Cola 600 race at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And so, like we said, it's Channing Tatum and Adam Driver as brothers. Their sister, our beloved Riley Keough, granddaughter of Elvis
God,
Presley.
yeah.
She's wonderful
Yeah.
in this. And right off the bat here, we get the Universal open. I'm like, okay, cool. So could be in the Fast and Furious universe. I remember that. That's cool.
I was thinking, sounding like you guys are right at home.
And then, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes in, Katie Holmes' husband is just like, I'm going to bring them to the new Furious Fast movie. I'm like, wait, what?
Yep. I totally didn't remember, and there's a direct quote that they know Fast and Furious exists in this movie.
Now, I remembered the reference to the Game of Thrones, the whole, like, trying to get the books to the
Yes,
prison
same.
library. I remembered
Yep.
that because, especially, we talk about in Hobbs and Shaw, them making multiple Game of Thrones jokes, and it not working already. And that's 2 years after this. This is still funny, I think, but I remembered that, like, oh, like, that is a weird reference, like, that might not hold up. And then here it's just like, oh, shit, like, I was just thinking about, a car movie by Universal, easy crossover, but then they're talking about it, so, like, maybe not a crossover if those are movies in this universe. Dominic Toretto can also exist in this universe, or maybe they can. Maybe
Yes.
there's documentaries. I don't know.
That just reminds me of the episode of The League when they're talking about Batman, and he's like, the crime fighter Batman, there's been like 3 documentaries in the past decade. And they're like, what are documentaries? Like non-pornographic movies. So yes, every movie is a documentary if you try hard enough and believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe Fast and Furious is real.
Dom would get to the point 15, Fast and Furious 20, because they say they're stopping. No, they're not. I have a say in it. They're not. They'll stop when I say that they're stopping. They get to like 2021. It would then, you'd have to do a flip the script mockumentary style interlude where they're making the movie about themselves. And so so it's this double thing. And of course, Toretto would have to direct a Vin Diesel stand-in in his own movie, because Toretto would end up, because a kid can never direct too hard or too slow, and there's so many cuts or whatever. It's like, and so that's my take. That's why it's not only does actual Dom Toretto exist in this universe, but so does Fast and Furious movies.
Brian, you just blew my mind that there's a possibility that we could get like a Halloween.
Well, I was thinking, like, we need like
Resurrection
a
or
Wes
whatever.
Craven's New Nightmare, but we need a Dominic Toretto's New Furious.
Yeah, because it's at the point where you now have to take it to every genre.
Sure.
Because we're past space, where I'm convinced Narnia is going to happen, and after that, it's what different forms and genres do we have? Western, mockumentary. It's something that's spray painted on the side of a bus. Just keep them coming. Don't stop. Never stop.
Never
I don't
stop.
want them to ever stop.
We also have, of particular note, a new actor. I don't know if you know, this is his first movie. We're introducing Daniel Craig as Joe Bang. Both the credits in the movie and the posters introduce him because he looks nothing like Daniel Craig. I mean, he looks exactly like Daniel Craig, but he's got bleach blonde hair and tattoos
Yeah.
all over his body and like this real deep Southern accent, and it's wonderful.
It's so it's just really some kind of something. I don't really know what it is he's doing, but it is a capital C choice in a way that's completely different from what he does with Benoit Blanc in Knives Out. It's, you know, another Southern fried character with an over-the-top accent that could easily go wrong. They're two characters just like that, yet these are very different, and they both work, and they're not the same at all. It's kind of incredible that I'm like, it's not fair that you're also able to do this. Excuse me, sir. Stop, please.
I feel like we have heard this a lot in Nicolas Cage movies, where like he showed up to set, like especially like on Peggy Sue Got Married, where his Uncle Francis. Check out Uncle Francis's Wine Cellar, the new podcast on the network by Brian Rodriguez and Mike Manzi. But he like showed up on Peggy Sue Got Married. He's like, I'm gonna do this weird, crazy voice, and they're like, no, you're not. He's like, yeah, I am. Or like, you're gonna like, and the studio was like, we're gonna fire you if you don't stop that. He's like, no, I'm gonna do it, and like he still did it anyway. So like, there's been like a history of dudes being like, this is what I'm gonna do.
Well, that's Brando on Dr. Moreau's like, I'm wearing an ice bucket on my head. It's like, no, he's not serious. And then sure enough, Cody's like, there's that ice bucket on his head. They're like, why? He's like, oh, I'll keep my head cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's what I want to do. Okay. Well, he makes a good point. So it was the least of that movie's problems. But anyway,
That's a wild
imagine
journey.
an actor. I imagine how if Daniel Craig just showed up and Soderbergh just said, do whatever you want.
Well, apparently, there's not very much interesting trivia about this movie, but there is one bit that says, and I don't know why there's not more trivia, because I feel like it's a recent movie with big actors and a big director, and there should be more, but apparently Daniel Craig had no rules in terms of like what his character was supposed to look like, so he just kind of showed up, or he dyed his hair and like added some like fake tattoos or whatever, and he sent Soderbergh a picture. He's like, all right, let's just add some more tattoos. So like it was like super like apparently it was Daniel Craig's idea, and Soderbergh's like, yeah man, cool, like let's just like raise it a little bit. So, you know, it's not Brando being difficult on set, Nicolas Cage it's difficult. It's just this is the thing that it's working.
This is I mean Brent, that was the extreme version of unprofessionalism. Cage is in his own way being the crazy jazz actor that he is, and it's like, you know, I'm going to do what I want because I'm following the muse or whatever. Daniel Craig and that everything you just said, that's completely professional. So it's not like if Soderbergh had said no, he'd said, all right, I'll find something else. You know.
Yeah.
So,
the one thing I was thinking while watching this show was that we, you know, all lap long, Brian, we've been talking about how many heist movies can we watch where before we get tired of them. Like, even if they're great movies, at a certain point, it's like, okay, it's another heist movie, then we know how it works. But, like, what's new about this one that we haven't seen yet, I don't think, this lap, is that they give up the money. I mean, spoiler, they don't. But there's a moment in this where you're like, oh, no, like, they did the heist, it worked, but they, like, gave it up. It's like, oh. And that's new. Like, that's a different spin on it that we haven't seen, I don't think, this lap.
yeah, they give up most of it. I mean, he pays off the people that helped, that were pivotal. He donates some of it to a clinic. He really just wanted to have a house closer to where his daughter was, and he still has a job. So it really wasn't about the money. It was kind of about, even after the fake out of giving it all away and having it back. Yeah, it's hard, especially after. It's hard to watch a heist movie now, having watched that Rick and Morty episode that absolutely slices and dices heist episodes. But this one is still, I think, stays one step ahead of it, and you're not expecting it to go some of the places it goes, especially because it's not slick. These guys are not hip and cool. That's the major thing that makes this stand out. It's not like, oh yeah, we got the French Vincent Cassel on the roof, and we're gonna bust him out at the right moment. And it's, even though those have their place and are a lot of fun, that this is apart from that. So the characters in the movie don't know what to expect, but you as the viewer don't know either. You don't know if they're gonna suddenly be stupid or if they're just underestimated.
Joe, do you think this, like, was this like does this fit in the like variations on the theme that we've seen this lap so far?
What do you mean, like in the structure of a heist movie?
Well, like we were just talking about with Hot Rock, we're like, oh well, like, it's a heist movie, but there's actually like 4 or 5 heists in that movie, where it's like the same kind of like it's the same core thing, like it's a heist movie, yeah, but like there's differences. Like was this another? Is it different enough to sort of continue that tradition that we accidentally stumbled into?
I do, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was, and I think Brian just summed it up there that like you don't have a super cool guy. Like in every other heist movie, you have a guy that's like that's the like cool badass one, and like even like Channing in this, his character's not like a super cool suave.
Right.
It's all gonna go right kind of guy, or like he has a plan for everything type situation. They're kind of bumbling through it, and I think that's definitely the charm of it is that you have like more of a ragtag bunch, but they're all ragged. There's no one that's really like the glue of the like, oh well, this guy's running it and the other guys are gonna screw it up because they're idiots. It's like they're all competent but also idiots. So yeah, it works. It works great. I not so much of the like giving quote unquote giving the money back or losing the money because I feel like we kind of get that in like fake outs in Ocean's 11. We kind of get that even in Fast and the Furious 5 with the tank through Rio and like the tank swap, these kind of things. Like that part we've seen before, but more so it like failing and working, but like in a new interesting way with the like vacuum tubes and stuff like that. So I do think there was something new and interesting here, and that's why I enjoyed it so much.
So apparently the vacuum tubes were I have not seen the original, but the vacuum tubes the vacuum tubes were in this movie 11 Harrow House from 1974, using
Okay.
cockroaches to find the vault access and vacuuming out the loot were plot devices there. So I don't know. Brian, do you know that movie?
I don't know.
That's new to me. And then also in the original Ocean's 11, smuggling loot out as garbage was used in that movie too. So like Soderbergh, obviously, we were just talking about with the Hot Rock. It seems like that probably directly inspired a bunch of his movies, but he's like sort of throwing back to movies that obviously you've seen the original Ocean's 11, I'm sure, a million times. It's like, oh, these are cool things that like paying lineage, paying homage, but also putting my own twist on it, and like it's just cool. It works in this world.
It made me think of Ocean's 13 a little bit, whereas it's not the entire heist, but a lot of it is giving money to everyone in the casino, and they just want to take this guy down. They don't want to really take his money or anything. So the way they do that is by having everyone win in this magical couple of minutes. So they make off with other things that he has, of course, but that's one of the reasons I like that particular movie so much is that they're not the ones getting the money; they're giving it to all of these other people. And like those movies too, which is something that you were just saying, this is what sets this apart from not only is there like no cooler than thou hero or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not like a heist that you'd see even in Fast and Furious or something certainly not out of something like Grand Theft Auto, because I don't think you see a single gun in this whole movie.
No.
There is not a gun. And the Ocean's movies don't rely on that either. There's one point, I think it's also in 13, where a gun is drawn and Damon can't believe it. He's like, a gun? Really? That's not what we do.
Right.
And it turns out it's not even loaded. It was just a trick because these guys are, it's against their professional code or something. But in this movie, not a single gun. And even Joe Bang, he doesn't even use the B word. He uses gummy bears and science to make his reaction go off. So there's not, his explosive isn't even, an actual explosive like that. There's no knives, guns, weaponry of any kind. I don't think there's even a fight unless, well, there is. There's the
fight.
I take it back. There is the Molotov cocktail going into Seth MacFarlane's car. But when they call,
but that's not even like a weapon in the sense that we see weaponry. Like that's just like a byproduct that he blows up his car just to be an asshole. Like it's not like he's like attacking
you don't see
him.
it. Exactly. Yeah. And you see you just see him reach for the bottle and the rag and ask for a lighter, and you know what's going to happen. And because it's Adam Driver, you're immediately excited, and that character has it coming. But certainly he gets a broken nose at the end and really milks it. So that's as far as it goes in terms of it. It just, I didn't realize that it's in a lot of ways it's just quite non-violent, and no security guards getting except there is some definitely beat him up in the prison riot, but even in there it's not as bad as many other movies that have prison riots. Yeah, especially when it comes to, which you already mentioned it, but my favorite scene in the whole movie, which I completely forgot about, the negotiations, which I couldn't believe it's just, you expect a couple minutes of this, and it goes on so long, and I love it because they just keep going with it. With the bit.
Well, that's the thing where like I remember seeing, because I'm always like, and maybe not in the moment, but thinking back about the movie, I think we probably talked about it on Cinemakers, where we're just like, this is so of the time with the Game of Thrones stuff, where it's like, is this going to hold up? Because it firmly dates it in a time, but like still the fact that this is now 5 years later, those books are still not out. People are still making the same complaints about them, and it's funny and well written. It's not Hobbs calling his daughter, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." It's like, all right, like I get it, but like, nobody's thinking about that. But the fact, like, I think weirdly, in a sense, because the final season turned people off, I think the thing that's going to sort of persist in culture in a weird way is the fact that the books never finished, more so than the TV show at all.
Yes.
And so the fact that that's what they're joking about, and the fact that it's like so smartly and funnily written, it just works in a way that like I was sort of dreading that scene in a way, and then it came up and I was like, oh no, this is still great.
It's great because the way the warden deals with it, and the warden is such a great character with a great runner. I mean, he's not a good man. I mean, he's a horrible man,
exactly.
But the performance is fantastic. But as he wants to give them this, and he's just flat out very bluntly and dryly saying that the book has not been released yet. And then they're like, but people coming in, they're telling us stuff. He's like, that information has been gained by the television show. The television show has gone on past the books now. They're making it up. They are past the books. And the way that he's just very dryly laying this out and obviously reading it, and he says he's reading it from Wikipedia, and then the prisoners just are not having it. They're like, that's, in what world would that happen? They're not believing it. They're not happy about it. And that still rings true for me as somebody who still honestly really likes all of the Game of Thrones series and doesn't really expect the books to ever happen. It's still it's the delivery of the lines that makes it funny, that these guys care that much about this thing, and that the warden just really just with a blank face has to say these things, and it just points out what the actual situation is.
It works so well in conjunction with the inmate, and I don't remember if that's Naaman, or because I know that they pay off Naaman at the end for starting the riot. I don't remember if it's the same guy or not, but the way that he like puts his hands up and walks away, just like, it's the man once again keeping us down, lying to us, feeding us bullshit. The way it's like, no, like I'm telling you the truth here. Like they're not.
No, it says
out.
right here on Wikipedia that the show has gone past the books. And now they're going for, it's like, no, they told us about the girl with the dragons. It's like, again, they got that information from the show. The Winds of Winter has not been released, nor has A Dream of Spring. George R. R. Martin has fatigue from other projects and has said that, and it's all the things we've already read a million times. It's the way the actor reads it, really, the warden, and the ongoing joys of the warden. I forgot about the whole prison riot sequence in general. So when that started, I was like, oh, right, this is a part of this.
Well, I think what works about this movie, and I think, it's your praise of Dwight Yoakam's performance as the warden. It's just that, like, I think what Soderbergh does well in his movies, that I think that other movies sometimes do, but like other movies don't do as well as Soderbergh consistently, is that the heist works because they're counting on the personality types of the people that they need to do. They know that running into Seth MacFarlane at the end underground is not going to be an issue because he's a douchebag that is like going to be unreliable. They have an alibi. They know that the warden does not want to get in trouble. He doesn't want to do this or that or whatever. So he's probably not going to report this. They're going to be like, it's all these things that like our heroes, our protagonists are not the smartest people, but they know people and they have an idea of like what's going to shake out, and like it works. Like they're able to play on the fact that these guys are stubborn or dumb or arrogant or whatever, and it all goes according to plan because it's a movie. But like it just works so well, and like those characters, the flaws that are written into them, they play out beautifully.
Yeah, and while they don't have it, they themselves are not in slick tuxes and looking as hot as Jennifer Lopez and say Out of Sight, and they're not all, you shook Sinatra's hand, you should know better, and all that stuff with Out of Sight and the Ocean's movies and everything else. What they do still have though is Soderbergh and the editor's wonderful sense of cutting and quick cuts and making it, giving it the speed and urgency and stakes of a heist, even without the slickness and everything else. So they feel like heroes on a heist without all of the usual things that come along with it. And it's I don't want to say that's a little subversive, because I'm sure other movies do that, but for here, it's a huge part of the charm.
Yeah.
And it makes it clear, they may not be, this is, what do they call this, Ocean 7-Eleven?
Ocean's 7-Eleven or the Hillbilly Heist. They call them both, yeah.
Yeah, they might be hillbillies, but they get the job done, and in very smart and innovative ways that none of these people see coming, except for Hillary Swank still on the case.
Which it's wonderful that she shows up with like 25 minutes to go and she's so good, but we'll get to her. So
yeah, I remember. I was like, what is she doing here?
Because she's like 6th or 7th build. Like, she's really high up in the credits, and she doesn't show up for like more than 90 minutes into this 2-hour movie. So
yeah,
that's great. Okay, so each episode this lap, Brian, we are choosing a character. We are assembling our ultimate heist team, which we're going to do something with at the end of the lap. But each movie we watch, we're each going to nominate one person, one character from the movie that we think merits inclusion on a heist team. So our last episode we did was Fast and Furious 6. So I nominated Ja, the Joe Taslim character. Joe nominated Dom, and our guest Ife Wadiwe nominated Tej. And so with 80% of the votes, Tej is the winner. So our patrons picked Tej as the winner for the team. We're each going to have our own team at the end. But if you were picking someone from Logan Lucky, someone from this movie that you think would bring something to a heist that either is hard to come by or invaluable or they're just great at their job, who would you pick from Logan Lucky? Who would you want? Who deserves inclusion on our ultimate heist team?
It's tough because I'm trying not to go with my favorite character, even though my choice is going to all. I have like 3 favorite characters in this movie. It's very hard. Also, is Dwight Yoakam's warden going to be on the team? No. Is he one of the highlights of the movie for me? Yes. But he's not on the team. So as much as there's like a tie for favorite character, if I'm really going and picking out who would I want on a heist team that's going to be able to pull out some crazy results out of nowhere, I gotta go Joe Bang.
Sure.
That's me too, dude. I'm 100% with you. I gotta go Joe Bang. He looks unassuming, but also like
Does he look unassuming?
I mean,
he can't. When he's in bed and that nurse is looking at him, it's like
True.
He can play
That's
the part
fair.
of unassuming. Nobody ever. He was in and out. Nobody ever knew. Oh, we need an explosive last minute. Well, what do we have around here? Well, here's some gum. He can MacGyver stuff.
He wrote out the fucking chemistry.
The power
of
science.
Yeah. So he's way smarter than he looks. Is what I'm banking on.
Him and Tej combined, you put them on the team, you're set in a lot of departments because you match Tej's computer skills with just Joe Bang's knowledge of random stuff and what they can do and what's lying around. That is a potent team. You're already ahead of the game.
I like that he delivers a chemistry lesson in the movie, that he writes it on
Yes.
the wall. Yeah. Because they're like, how is this going to work? I thought you were Joe Bang. Like, you have to live up to your name. You want gummy bears? He's like, well, this is this. The salt substitute is the potassium, and blah, 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 blah. You add a little bit of heat, you got a bomb. You got an explosion, whatever. And he, like, draws it all out, and he's like, this is how it works. It's wonderful.
It's like, oh, you're brilliant. And then they go the extra step of showing Channing Tatum erasing it later, covering his steps. He's not, and erasing the fingerprints. It's like, you think he forgot all that? No. He's smart enough to get rid of all that evidence too.
Yep.
It's a very nice touch.
I think that Channing would be a worthy inclusion. I think Adam Driver is a pretty worthy inclusion. I think Riley Keough's Melly would be a great inclusion. But I do think the only name I wrote down, I was going to try to play devil's advocate and like sort of go for somebody else, but I think it has to be Joe Bang. I think it just has to be because
unanimous this time. Yeah.
He's just great.
It kills me to not say Driver. I really want him. I just want to get to know any of his characters on any team. I guess I have to remind myself I am not going on this heist, so I am not going to beat anybody.
It could be. When we cover the heist in Men in Black International, we are going to nominate Brian Silliman. And
they're going to want the cab driver. Yeah, obviously they're going to need a getaway driver.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's hard because Driver it's between Craig Driver and Riley Keough is fantastic as well. If we're talking just character, not actor.
Yeah, because I think what's nice that what sort of bumps up. I think that if I had to pick a second one, I would pick Melly, Riley Keough's character, because I think
great second choice. Yep.
She's good through the movie, but then I think when you see the twist at the end of what actually happens, how they actually got away with some of the money, I think the extra stuff she does of like sort of blending into the background and helping them out and like actually being in there and just
Yep.
all the stuff that she does, I think that elevates it at the end. Also, just the excitement that she has on her face when like we have a code pink and like she knows that her nail polish thing worked. Like I love her so much. She's wonderful. So I'd like to have her on the team, but I do think that like not having Joe Bang is a shortcoming. So I think we need to have Joe Bang.
Yeah, she can blend in, and then also when she doesn't blend in, that can also work to her advantage because she can play both ways. It's like if she really wants to stick out, she absolutely can.
She could be like a gorgeous knockout distraction, and also could put a hat on and then just like walk through the middle of a NASCAR race, and like everybody's like, okay, whatever.
And I feel like can also talk shit in a way that we have rarely seen this lap, like when she's talking to her,
I
guess, not really brother-in-law, but Katie Holmes' husband or whatever, and she's like, she gets him to say like, I'm a big stick guy, I like big stick or whatever, I love stick, and just like walking away like she knows she won the argument, like she's able to like anything you need to do, it's wonderful. So
and I'm like, keep giving it to Roy from The Office. It's like
exactly.
And that's every role he does now is some variation on that. No, not every role, but a lot of them.
I think we need to talk about Hilary Swank, though, because I think her 93-minute mark drop in as the FBI agent, she has a great line. She's like, I hate airtight alibis, which is like, there's got to be something there. Like, I was in prison. Like, I couldn't have done this. I was in prison. It's like, well, that's not necessarily, but,
It's like, what are you so worried about? There's nothing wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's the problem.
Well, that's the Hobbs line in Fast and Furious 6, basically. It's like there's never nothing, there's always something. Like there's something here. I don't know what it is.
That's exactly what worries me.
The Logan curse gonna, maybe strike again, because as they're all not really celebrating, but they're all happy at the bar that Channing is now dating Catherine Waterston. Wonderful in this movie as well as the physician's assistant doing the...
Must be nice, Channing. Must be nice.
She's looking beautiful in this movie. I loved her in Inherent Vice. She's great here. But, he's happy with her after the donation. She knows who it's from, even though he doesn't sign it because of the way that he underlines the A in Sylvia.
And the Band-Aids on the back. He does like, he does like 3 or 4 different things. It's like 2 of them would have sufficed. But if it's Catherine Waterston on the line, I would have done the same.
Rightfully so. Her Catherine Waterston's partner is just I don't know, don't expect anything because it's written in crayon and it's got a kid's Band-Aid on the back or whatever, right? So it does look like a crazy person did it, but he knows what he's doing. But they're all there, they're all happy, they're all celebrating that they got away with some of the money. And then who's there at the bar but Hilary Swank? Just I think I'm gonna be sticking around a while. It's like, uh-oh.
And it makes you want a sequel. I'm sorry, but it does. It's like, because this is just perfect, contained in what it is, and whatever sequel there is will live on in our imaginations, right? And that's surely what that was intended to do. And though I was reading that Channing, like he's my best friend. Channing Tatum.
Because Channing is a name that, when you say Channing, there's only one Channing you're referring to, unless you're Carol.
Yeah,
I mean, it's either Tatum or Carol, and usually it's Carol. But
no one calls her Channing, right? Yes.
No, I would not have. I would never in a million years
would
I do that. She just whacked me right across the face. She wouldn't tolerate that. So he has said never rule anything out with Steven Soderbergh because look at Magic Mike gets a sequel, but he has said there are no plans in the works. It's not on anybody's pitch deck. Nobody is working on it. But still, I can't help but think what Logan Lucky would be. And eventually at the end of it, and if she's pursuing them throughout. But then they managed to get her on their side, and so at the end, she kind of has to join their team. And in the third one, it's Andy Garcia in Ocean's 13. She's just a part of the heist now. It's there because there's nothing I love more than the not the antagonist, but the one working against the heroes eventually teaming up with them. And that's why Fast and Furious does that with pretty much every antagonist ends up joining the team. And that's one of the chief joys. That's why I love every time Magneto has to begrudgingly work with Xavier. I found that dynamic fantastic. So I'm already planning, like I said, they do 3 of these movies. She's with them in the third movie.
Oh, for sure.
They're doing. Yeah. And maybe marrying Adam Driver. I don't know.
What Soderbergh is also proven to be really good as like Ocean's 12 is a great movie. Like I think that gets a bad rap. I think that's when we did Cinemakers, I expected to like 13 more than 12, but I think 12 is kind of like a masterpiece because 12 is basically a sequel about how hard it is to make a sequel and like how hard it is to do a follow-up heist to a perfect heist. And I feel like whatever Logan Lucky 2 would be, or 2 Logan 2 Lucky, as you said, would be, it would be like a cat and mouse movie that's like about being a cat and mouse movie or about like following something up or whatever. Like it would be something that's not just a cop tracking them down or joining the team or whatever. There'd be something more. There'd be another twist. There'd be a reason to make the movie other than making money. And I hope that we get it, but because the weird thing is that like this is filled with like pretty big names, but like you were saying, it's not like a Tom Cruise, but it's like, oh, like there's so many people went on to make so many things, but like Adam Driver was already Kylo Ren, and also he's no longer Kylo Ren. Daniel Craig was already James Bond. He's also no longer James Bond. Like,
fair.
Channing Tatum and Riley Keough are both like still.
Channing Tatum is no longer Channing Tatum. He's Mickey Smith now. So, it's a completely different person. Not really.
Well, no, but I mean, he also retired from acting basically after this movie and came back, right? Like Riley Keough is still like sort of doing her weird indie quirky roles. Like, yeah, you could get the whole crew back, I think.
I think if they did it now, it would theoretically do better because Adam Driver's a bigger name now.
Yep.
Daniel Craig is people are used to seeing him in. This was pre-Knives Out, wasn't it? Yeah. So he's already established that he can do that. I think there would be more opportunities for a movie like this to find its groove than there was before. Or who knows? I mean, I'm really I don't want to sound entitled. It's like I want more, but I'm happy to have this, and we can just use our imaginations for the rest. But you can't help but wonder. It's like, well, what would a sequel be? And it's exactly that thing. It's because when I first saw Ocean's 12, I didn't like it. I was like, this is not as charming as the first one. It's completely, and that's the point. It's not trying to replicate the first one. And so when I watched it a second time, I got it a little bit more, and I was there were less expectations. I'm like, oh, this is good in a different way. And also it's the only one of these with Albert Finney in it. So that immediately kind of gives it a nice little party hat. Whereas Ocean's 13 is a little more like Ocean's 11.
Right. It's back in Vegas. It's the whole thing. Yes.
I like Ocean's 8 also, I should say. I think that one's a little gets a bad rap. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with that one. It
stars women. That's what's wrong with it. People don't like Lady Ghostbusters. They don't like Lady Oceans, right? It's the same thing. Even though Lady Ghostbusters is, I will say, on record,
incredible,
funnier than the original. I don't think the original Ghostbusters is funny. I think it's
I love
funny
the original.
People being like weird. I think the newer one has more jokes, but
the only problem with that Ghostbusters that you mean the Kristen Wiig,
answer the call,
McKinnon one is that Peter McNichol is not in it. That's my problem with any Ghostbusters movie aside from Ghostbusters 2, because that's the only one right now that Peter McNichol is in. So put him in it, and we're fine. But I find that movie quite funny.
Yeah.
I don't know what the problem is with that, but Ocean's 8, it's like, do you not want to look at all of these beautiful, talented women doing this thing? What exactly is wrong here? I don't know. I mean, I get why, but I don't really get why.
Right.
So
it's like, I understand why, but I also don't understand why sexism exists. Right. It's just like, what can you point? Like,
I'm glad somebody said it. I'm like, finally, it's about time somebody said it. If for no other reason, Kate Blanchett. I mean, it's Galadriel on a heist. What's wrong with you?
Oh man, she's amazing in everything she does.
Yeah.
I want to point out here, Sebastian Stan, the Winter Soldier in this movie, as one of Seth MacFarlane's other racers.
I forgot he was in it. I didn't. This was before the explosion of Jack Quaid. Yes. So when I first saw this, I didn't even know who Jack Quaid was.
Jack Quaid, the titular boy in The Boys.
In The Boys, and one of the stars of Star Trek Lower Decks.
Mm-hmm. We got Macon Blair, who's a great director, actor, as Hilary Swank's +1, basically. We had Jim O'Hare from Parks and Rec.
Yeah. I kept thinking someone to tell him to shut up or call him a different name, but he doesn't
Gary.
Gary, whatever. Shut up, Gary.
But Soderbergh always is able to put like really funny people or just like cool people that everybody loves in the background or in one scene. He just fills this movie, like he's got an eye for talent. Him and his casting director, who I think he's like used for most, I don't remember her name. I got to look her up.
I believe it's Carmen Cuba.
He has this team around him. He does his own cinematography, but like when he has other people, or like he does his own editing, but he has those people. Like all these things that he has around him help make his like sort of singular. It's what you've seen. Like it's kind of comfort food, but it's done in a way that like isn't normally done. It's wonderful.
From what I've heard of people that have worked with him on various projects, he is very involved in the casting process, not just in the principal actors, but say you have an actor has one line. He is very involved in making sure that is exactly the right actor. When it comes to actors in the background, they have to be exactly right. He is very involved with the way every single person looks. As far as I'm told, I have not unfortunately worked with him myself, but that is that he has. It's not that an overzealous, maniacal need for control. It's just he oversees everything. He's a part of all of that. He wants it exactly the way to fits his vision, and he just makes sure that that happens. Which respect for that. He doesn't just and he so when it comes time to shoot, he's like, okay, fire them, get rid of them, replace that. It's like everybody knows if you have his guarantee, you're fine.
Yeah, and it works. Like it pays off. Like it.
Yeah.
The proof is in the pudding, or whatever they say, right? So
Yeah.
Joe, other thoughts about Logan Lucky? Any scenes that you love we have not talked about? Moments, characters, anything?
For how much we talk about in the Fast and Furious, there's a ton of gas stations in this movie.
True.
And it kind of grounds it in a way, because like, I mean, everybody spends some time at a gas station, right? Whether you're like getting a drink or something like that, and especially like if you're in a place like West Virginia that doesn't really have giant shopping, like I'm imagining that there's not like a giant shopping center near them, right? So like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna you're gonna spend a lot of time around a gas station somehow. That's just how this stuff works. And I thought that was really interesting, just because for so many cars in Fast and Furious, we never see a gas station.
And also just like Channing, like, like it's the same kind of thing that we think we would see Han doing, but him like waiting for his daughter, just like eating like a shitty little chocolate, like a Drake's cake or whatever, just like...
Yeah, like a Ding Dongs, yeah.
Just like, that's just what's around, right? He's just going to eat that because he's at the gas station. Like there's not like good food options there. He's going to eat something that tastes good, not good for you. So just like, it feels real.
Yeah, exactly. So I was pretty stoked on that. I have a question for you, and I don't know the answer. So at one point they called the cops muskers. Did we watch another movie where they called the cops muskers? I feel like we just did.
I can't think of it.
You can't think of it?
Musker is a Romany word that means police. It's a gypsy term, muskers for police, apparently.
Oh.
Gotta watch out for them muskers.
Yeah.
We might get cheesed.
Yeah, exactly.
When you Google cops muskers movie, Zootopia comes up. Oh, that's John Musker. Nope, different thing. Logan Lucky comes up, and there's a movie called Beyond.
I was going to say, my favorite really rated NC-17 gritty cop movie of all time is Zootopia.
Yeah.
Zootopia, yeah, exactly.
I mean, that sloth scene is like, can you imagine that they let them make that?
Hard. Oh, it goes hard. And even I'm like, I have a high tolerance. I'm like, this is violent.
Now that you say that, I think that I'm just remembering that we were on like a bender watching like a whole bunch of, I don't know the name of the show, you're gonna have to Google it, but it's like Gypsy Wedding Dressmaker, and there's like a whole like show about this one woman that makes all of the like
Little Shop of Gypsies?
No, it's something about, it's specific, My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding or something? My Big Fat
Gypsy
Wedding.
Dressmaker on TLC?
Yeah, like that.
Okay.
So I think that they were calling them muskers, and I thought that it was a movie that we watched, but now that you said that it was like a gypsy term for it, then yes.
Couldn't tell you.
Those were the main things that I was just like thinking about as I was watching the movie, trying to pick who my heist bud would be.
Sure. Brian, other favorite moments, favorite scenes, characters, lines, anything we have not talked about yet?
I like the twist at the pageant. I like any moment, any scene where this has been the setup that the character for whatever performance or speech or presentation is going to do this song, and then at the last minute decides to change it up and just do something from the heart is bound to kind of a sucker punch with me. But I don't think Soderbergh had me in mind when he was planning this. And so that was how they did it, and the child who performs this is fantastic, but also that he shows up, and that's why she does it, and the father-daughter bond is wonderful. I love that. And no, we did not need to see this child do Umbrella by Rihanna. She goes out and sings from her heart, and the audience joins in a little bit, and then wins the whole thing. It's not at all what the movie is about, but it's a nice grace note enough so when it's part of the alibi, which is convenient, not only does he make it for his daughter and is there for her, it's conveniently part of the alibi. They say it's like, well, not only he has an alibi, he was at this school for his daughter's beauty pageant, and apparently she won.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's even more details in the sack of problems for Hilary Swank. He's like, oh, that's great. I'm so glad,
Well, what I also love about the relationship, the father-daughter relationship, is like the movie, I think the first scene is her handing him tools. Like you can see just
Very
like,
much, yep.
it's a very show don't tell, like that he raised her, that like, yeah, she's with Katie Holmes too, but like she loves him. Like her choice, and like the only reason she's with Katie Holmes and her shitty new husband is because of the court was like, you have full custody, because like that's just what happens. Like he's, I also do think that ties into, and I'm not going to go into detail here because we talked about it like every episode of Cinemakers, but like Soderbergh's whole thing is the American dream and like people trying to make it and trying to, create wealth. And usually it doesn't really work for a lot of their characters, but like that's what for Magic Mike XXL being such a pure, fun, wonderful thing about positive sexuality, the first Magic Mike is just like, how do you make it in America? How do you make money? And here it's the same thing. It's like guys down on their luck trying to figure out a way to like get by. And so, yeah, like the courts are not going to award custody to a guy who like can't keep a job because he's got like an injury and whatever, not his fault, but like to show how close the father and daughter are, it's just so wonderful. So when he shows up and when she sees him and changes her plans, it's beautiful. Like it makes me cry. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's also not that he necessarily wants to become big and rich and never have to work again. After this big successful heist where they end up with garbage bags full of money, he gives it to the people. He more than gives it to the people that helped him get there. He helps this clinic. He just wants to be closer to where his wife and kid is. And he's still working. He's working at Lowe's and he's happy. And so he pulls off this huge heist and he's still doing a job that needs to be done of service. And he's working at Lowe's and he's likely happy because his family's together. He's dating Catherine Waterston and he gets to be close to his daughter. So I'd call that a success. Yeah. No, he's not living the high life and drinking Cosmos on a beach chair, or wherever the hell, and living it up with, burning through cash. He uses it for good reasons, and he's still working. It's not like, I'm doing this so I never have to work again.
Yeah,
because he's probably not that kind of guy. I'm that kind of guy. he's probably not.
Yeah, congratulations! You just won the lottery. What are you buying? He's buying a new garage. Like he's just gonna keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's like, or buy something for my daughter, or put this away for her college fund, or buy Catherine Waterston a new, what is it, a vaccine bus or whatever the hell that thing is.
Yeah, just new alternate, whatever the part
buy a
needs,
bigger
right?
and better one like this, and it might have NAS in case you really have to get away. And I'm gonna buy an even better arm for my brother. He do that stuff first. It's like, am I going to fix this limp? Probably not. I'll just deal with it. It's fine.
I also do want to say that this movie came out in a year where like 4 or 5 movies used John Denver songs, like Kingsman 2, and like there's like it was like a weird and they were all used and that so is well.
The more, I have to say, that is the more memorable use of a song from that person, because that Kingsman 2 scene is ridiculously incredible.
But it's used perfectly here too. Like it was just like this weird moment in time, right? So
unfortunately, I would give anything if Mark Strong then walked up behind this girl at the pageant and started singing along with her. People tell me that's an unrealistic expectation and that they don't need Logan Lucky to cross over with Kingsman 2. But I say, grow an imagination.
Yeah, why not? Channing in both movies.
Why not?
It's the same character.
Why not? I didn't even put that together. You're absolutely right.
Channing a Kentucky, like a bourbon guy or whatever in there. Like that's not wildly far off from here, right? So
I don't want to tell anyone what to do. That said, they should absolutely have done this. They're wrong to not do it. They have horrible taste for not doing it, and the movie is now worse because they shot down my fantasy. So,
very well said.
Long and short of it, thanks for nothing, Soderbergh.
All right. With that said, let's watch the trailer for this movie. So this is posted by Bleecker Street in May of 2017. This is the original trailer posting. It's got 12 million views. Logan Lucky official HD trailer. And I would imagine I've probably seen or at least heard this trailer a bunch.
I think we did. It was like a period. They played it a lot at the movies, and that was like a big time of movies to see. Go ahead.
The top comment, Daniel Craig's attempt at losing the James Bond typecasting, LOL, looks good. Yeah. Oh, also another comment which I'm sure is in the trailer, another Joe Bang line where he's like, they're like, oh, we need you to help with this job. And they're like, when is it? It's like, next week. He's like, I am incarcerated. Just like going back and forth. Just wonderful. All right. Are you guys ready to watch this trailer?
Well, it's good to see Adam upholding the Skywalker tradition of losing a hand.
Very, very true.
I'm getting an ad for HBO Max before. You guys getting that too?
Well, I have an ad blocker.
I use ad blockers.
I have an ad blocker, and I also have my sister pays her YouTube Premium for some reason, so I'm on that too, which is I highly recommend that. All right, 3, 2, 1, play.
Bleecker Street.
I think Soderbergh also probably cuts his own trailers, if I remember right. So like he probably made this.
I gotta let you go.
Super cool.
You were just fired.
Two brothers.
For liability reasons involving insurance.
This is fun. This is a fun trailer
I don't
already.
know if I've
just
seen
like
this trailer. I think I remember.
I don't think
that.
I've seen this one.
Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Oh, also, sort of like the original Ocean's 11, where they're targeting the specific weekend because it's the fight weekend. They don't want to do that here, but it accidentally becomes the the Coca-Cola 600 or whatever. Like when they have to do the thing, right? Like it's like we're getting pushed up, so it's similar in a way. It's like this is the biggest weekend of the year. There's the line.
Yeah, we got
But instead of by choice, it's because it has to be banned because they finished the work early.
Coca-Cola 600 is the biggest race of the year.
We need a computer whiz.
I know everything there is to know about
I like the
all the Twitters.
toilet bowl, toilet lid,
Horseshoes.
horseshoes. Yeah.
Welcome to the Coca-Cola 600.
And there was Brian's Jack Quaid.
20 yards. I don't know, maybe 30.
Is it 20 or is it 30? We are dealing with science here.
Also, I said, Brian was saying before about Soderbergh's ability to show like the cutting at the right time and showing speed.
Yes.
There's a couple times here, like this scene here where they don't run, or outside where the Bang Bros, I'm sure named specifically for that, but the Bang Bros are like bombing that like thing to cut down the cell tower, and they don't run either. It's like they're cutting to show speed or not cutting to show like these guys don't know what they're doing.
Oh, this is gonna be good. That looks like it hurt.
Yeah, Sebastian Stan. That's right.
I want everything on Jimmy Logan.
Introducing Daniel Craig as Joe Bang.
Naked. So no bacon. I said no bacon.
It's so much fun. This is such a fun movie.
People say. People say that.
Would you give me my arm, please?
Is it this one?
Beautiful. I also think it's great where Riley Keough knows because it's a holiday weekend, because of this, because of that. There's budget cuts to the police. They're not going to have a lot of troopers out. There's only going to be one. And Joe Bang is like, well, that's still one. And she's like, no, it's taken care of. And he goes, what? She goes, that's taken care of. It's because Channing called in on that, the old woman that she was like giving
in
a
the
hair,
purple car,
right?
Yeah.
Just like, oh no, it's she needs to be contained, as the cop says, right? So wonderful.
Yeah, and they go speeding past, and they're like, "Don't look at that. We got a situation here with this old woman who's obviously not a threat."
We've watched a lot of movies lately where cops are idiots, which is nice to see. So shout out to them.
This movie does, and in the trailer especially, like it's very much show don't tell. We often bitch about this, that like, come on, the audience is smarter than that. Like, we don't see the little girl win the thing, we just see her with the trophy. You know what happened.
Yep.
Like, we don't see, like, there's so many instances that he does this in this movie that it's just like, okay, like the thing just worked, and like moving along, we got more of the story to tell, just fucking do it.
Absolutely. There's no scene where, for instance, he says it's like, well, thanks to our gambit with the cake and the cockroaches, we trailed exactly where the tubes go, and now we know which vault to go from. So now we will go to the next step. They just leave you to put that together. And some people may put it together and some may not. But it's, it doesn't treat you stupid or talk down at all.
And very nice wordplay there, Brian, with the gambit, the whole Channing Tatum of it all, almost playing gambit. So
yeah,
well played.
All right, we have one game to play, Brian. We don't play this in the main episode, so I don't know if you know this, but it's called the Letterbox game. So, for reference sake, Mad Max: Fury Road, one of the most popular films on Letterbox, has been seen by 1.1 million people. 1.1 million people have logged that movie on Letterbox. Now, Logan Lucky, 2017, directed by Steven Soderbergh, starring Channing Tatum, Adam Driver, Riley Keough, Daniel Craig, Katie Holmes, Catherine Waterston, Seth MacFarlane, Dwight Yoakam, Sebastian Stan. Just like see the names laid out. Incredible.
Yeah.
This game was very difficult, Brian. Do not feel bad if you don't even know where to begin. How many people do you think have seen or have logged on Letterboxd Logan Lucky? Joe, do you want to go first? You want to give Brian sort of a baseline for a guess?
I think so. I think I'm going to go 185,000.
Okay. Brian, how many people do you think have logged this movie on Letterboxd?
What was Mad Max again?
1.1 million.
1.1.
Wow, well, it's definitely not that. I'd say it would depend on. It hasn't been streaming on Hulu forever, but I know it's been other places. It kind of moves around the streamers, so it's often available.
Yep.
And I could see people not like if it's available for free streaming, then watching it that way. Once they see, all of these people in it, and especially the huge Katie Holmes hive is going to follow her anywhere.
Of course.
But I think that what the number before is probably accurate. I'll say, give it a little more optimistic, 250,000.
Well, I will say you're both pretty close, somewhere in between. One more guess for both of you, between 185 and 250.
200 even. 200.
I was going to go 205. Yeah.
206.
All right. Well, Brian, with that revision of a bid, wins in the Price is Right rules 229,000 people. 229, 211. 229,000.
We honestly didn't start off that bad.
Pretty solid. No, you were in the ballpark. So now out of those 229,000 people, the average rating of a 3.5, most common a 4, then a 3.5, then a 3. Brian, I don't remember. Are you on Letterboxd or are you not on Letterboxd?
No. Is that something that I mean, I like the parody accounts that intentionally write stupid reviews of things. It's like of the Deep Blue Sea. They're like, the sea wasn't that blue, so 1 star. It probably doesn't help the service at all. I didn't really know that was a thing that people do all that often. So no, I'm not on Letterboxd. I'm not even really familiar with what it is.
Well, you are on Letterboxd as an actor in 3 films. We might have even talked about this, but you're in Men in Black International, Family Obligations, and The Mix.
I bet they're all doing smashingly on Letterboxd.
Joey uses it as a way to just keep track of movies you've seen and his thoughts and rankings and
it's also nice that like
ratings of those movies.
In addition to that, it's also like if you find people with similar taste to you, like there might be a movie that has like a 3.0 average, which is like fine, not great, but like if you have friends who like a certain kind of movie that you like, and they all give it 4, 4.5, 5 stars, whatever. You're like, oh, this is a movie that like might not be widely loved, but it's something that like I'm probably gonna love because the people I trust. So it's a nice way to sort of like aggregate reviews and reviewers and whatever. And also there's dumb jokes or whatever. But on Letterboxd, each account has 4 favorite films. So you pick your top 4 favorite films. Some people use it as a joke. Some people do they're honest. They're 4. Some people cycle it through. Whatever. But out of those 229,000 people who have logged the movie. Joe, go first, because again, this is even harder. How many people do you think have this in their top 4 of all time?
I was teetering between 2 numbers of 12 and 8, but I'll go 12. Yeah, it's a little far back, and it didn't do great. It's a weird time. It's not like, oh, this is a classic. You know what I mean? So like that's why my number's so low. But that's I think a good starting point. 12.
Okay.
It's fantastic, and I'd go so far as to say I love this movie. But there are a lot of movies in existence, and I love a lot of movies. And if I'm into a movie, I love it. But that said, picking only 4, there's no way this would be in my top 4. I mean, and that's not a thing in the movie. It's just there's so many damn movies out there.
But you have to factor in there's like people that just love Channing. There's
it
people
might
that
be
just love Katie Holmes. There's people that love Daniel Craig.
Dwight Yoakam fanatic, Dwight Yoakam himself, if he has Letterboxd. I'd say 5.
Well, the good news for this movie is that you are both way, way, way too low. So give another guess.
Really? Okay, cool.
37.
I'll go 46.
Still way, way, way too low. One more guess.
73.
105.
276 people have Logan Lucky in their top
insane.
4.
Oh,
that's insane.
There's some hope for Le Cinema after all.
Yeah.
Soderbergh too. That makes sense. Yeah, but that's still way
Yeah.
higher than I thought.
That's a good point for huge Soderbergh completists and everything. If their top 4 are all Soderbergh, I could say it's like, well, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Out of Sight, Traffic, and then a fun one, Logan Lucky.
Yep.
So we're gonna go to.
Apparently, that's how they talk.
We're gonna go to Zev's profile at Sandra O Fan Club on Twitter or on Letterboxd. Zev reviewed this movie 4 times in the span of a year and a half. First up, the whole movie was good, but arguably the best part was Joe Bang giving Jimmy and Clyde a chemistry lesson in the middle of a heist. 5 stars. Then 4 months later, still relevant 3 years later because GRRM, George R.R. Martin, hasn't given The Winds of Winter to his publisher. 5 stars. Then earlier this year, Jimmy Logan unleashes something demonic in me. I need to be his trad wife. 5 stars. 1 week after that, I think this movie is God or something. 5 stars. So Zev, their number 2 favorite movie of all time is Logan Lucky. Their number 1 and their number 4 are both movies that we have talked about in this episode.
Ocean's 11.
Very close.
Ocean's 13.
You're too far.
Ocean's 12.
Ocean's 12 is
good.
number 1 favorite movie.
Okay, we got 1.
Number 4 is another movie we've mentioned this episode, but it's not a Soderbergh movie.
Zootopia.
No, that'd be very funny if that was, though.
Guess.
No, it's not.
Oh, excellent guess. Okay, another movie. Is it a Fast and Furious movie?
Nope. But it's a movie we talk about a lot.
A movie we talk about a lot.
The Irishman?
Nope.
No, you don't. You don't talk about that a lot either.
Winter Soldier, maybe?
No.
Okay.
Sebastian Stan's Big Christmas movie?
No.
No, I would love to see that, though.
It is a real thing.
Is
It's
it
hard
really?
to find a copy. No, it's not. I'm sorry. What else? What else have we talked about?
I would say we might talk about this movie more than any movie that's not a Fast and Furious movie on this podcast.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Definitely more often than any other movie, for sure.
Is it Mad Max?
It's Mad Max Fury Road.
Fury Road. There you go.
Every episode.
Well, that's such a good movie.
It's perfect.
That's why we use it as the bench. Like when we started, we were like, okay, well, how many people have seen Mad Max to get like a fucking benchmark here? You know?
It's like that's like, okay, 4K test disc quality kind of a movie. It's
My test for those, just for everyone to know, is the opening scene to Lost. I just, every time that I either get a new TV or a new set or a Blu-ray or whatever, I just put on the opening, the plane crash, them responding. I'm just like, because the sound crazy, pictures crazy.
Really?
This is a really hi-fi record player guy thing to do. You got the one thing that you put on to like benchmark what you're listening to compare, like if you swap out speakers or receiver or whatever, like you're like, I know this song, I've heard it a million times. So
yeah, that's me with mine is Fellowship of the Ring, because I got to get those Shire greens as green as I want them. I want them and all the other colors popping and everything to look just right. If that looks right, including the exact color green of Bilbo's door, then everything else is just going to have to go along with that. That's the calibration. That's more important to me than anything else.
That's a good thing. It's a good metric. You got to have a baseline.
And thankfully, it's like Godfather and the rest. Yeah, those still look great.
Yeah. And then we have one more movie to guess. Zev's third favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
It is a movie that became a TV show.
Ooh.
And both the movie and the TV show are great.
Jack Reacher.
No, that's a good guess. Better. Both are better than their counterparts there.
Movie that became
a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me like an era? Like what years it was? Give me like a decade.
The movie is from the 90s and the TV show is from the 2010s.
Oh, so it was much, much later.
I will say this movie was made by someone that Brian mentioned earlier in this episode.
Who the fuck did Brian mention?
Yeah, I don't even know who I mentioned. Well, it was a movie. Well, Battlestar was a show and then kind of a movie, and then
no, this was a movie first in the 90s and then became a TV show in the 2010s, made by someone or someone's hint.
Oh, the
Brian
Coen
mentioned.
brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Fargo.
Ocean's
Good job.
12,
We got there, Brian.
Logan
Good
Lucky,
team.
Fargo, and Fury Road.
Good teamwork, bud.
Those are some top choices. I mean, how can you go
picks.
wrong with Fargo in any top 4? I'm like, I can't debate it. That movie's amazing, as is the show.
Mm-hmm. Both great. Both great. Also great. Brian, you are great. Thank you so much for joining us again on the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me and for giving me a wonderful excuse to re-experience this incredible movie that I love so much. I had a great time revisiting it, and as always, a great time talking with you guys about it.
Selfishly, I pick movies for this show that either I want to see already and need a reason to, or want to watch again. So I'm glad that you could also fall into that trap or rabbit hole or whatever here. So
happy to do it.
Brian, what would you like to plug? What's out there? I know that I mentioned Return of the Pod, but what do you want people to know about you if they don't already know about you? You still getting those residuals from Men in Black International? Should people buy that? So let us know what's out there that you want people to know about.
If you want to watch Men in Black International, pay for it if you can. If you don't want to pay for it, watch it on Stars. I think it's on Stars now.
Cool.
You can return if you like Star Wars and you're looking for a Star Wars podcast that's all positivity, even warts and all positivity, even the silly stuff. We celebrate it all. Return of the Pod is the place to be. You can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And other than that, if you want to, I'm occasionally on Twitter at Brian Silliman.
Very, very cool. And I will say, we haven't talked about it here. Joe, did you watch Obi-Wan Kenobi or no?
No, I didn't. I heard it was kind of a roller coaster. Everybody's reactions that I saw was like, oh, it was a slow burn, or they weren't enjoying it, and then they were like, but the end was pretty good.
I will say that I was down on it because I did not really care for Boba Fett, but I kind of loved Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, I think that there's part of it where it's like, there's some of the tension taken out of it. I'm sure that you understand, like, because you know that, like, Leia's not going to die, that Luke's not going to die, that Obi-Wan's not going to, like, there's stuff that's just like, I wonder how this is going to turn out. But, like, the fact that it's, like, basically like a Leia origin story is wonderful.
It really enhances the movies that come after it.
Yeah.
If you've seen this, great. You don't need it, but it's nice to have it. And this is going to sound sad, but it's not. I didn't know that this kind of show is something I didn't think I needed right now. It turns out a completely broken man finding his way back to the light and recapturing his spark is kind of the show that I needed to see right now. The performances all across the board. I also have an unconditional love for all things Star Wars. Star Wars can do no wrong. Even the holiday special, if it says Star Wars on it, I don't care. I see the flaws. I don't care. The fandom is tedious about it, with the up and down and the Goldilocks shit of this is too slow, this is too fast, too much fan service, not enough fan service. I eventually have to just tune that out. And I'm like, do I enjoy it? That's all that matters.
Yep.
And the people I talk to about it really are my podcast co-hosts, and we kind of, all of us have nice conversations about it. Other than that, I don't really want to, people like to weigh in with their opinions, and I'm like, there are other things going on in my life than just Star Wars. It's like, it's not, I'm sure you guys probably get this too with Fast and Furious, everyone having to weigh in with opinions and takes and everything. And after a while, it's like, I actually don't need them. You can have them on your own. And sometimes after a while, you just don't want let's talk about literally anything else. I don't want to hear about why, a submarine in the ice is ridiculous for the 500th time. Because it's fun as hell, and shut up. And you bought the ticket. Know what did you expect? And I will just say this, because last time when I was on, when we were talking about Fate of the Furious, I had a ranking.
Oh, do you have new rankings?
I do. Haven't thought about it, but whenever, in another 2 years or so, you guys ever have me back to talk more Fast and Furious, all I'm going to say is it has changed. And I will say
it definitely does.
Wow, to myself, because who's the authority here? I was way wrong, as I've watched them many more times, especially when they were re-released and with glorious HDR, a lot of them in 4K. Was a nice excuse to rewatch some of them. I was way off.
You are. I forgot that you had Furious 7 and Fate tied for your favorite movie.
Yeah, that's not true anymore.
No one else has Fate above number 4. Maybe there's one person with number 3. Two people number 3, but nobody even has it as their second favorite, and you would have tied for first. So
2 is still the bottom. That's not that I don't like that movie, but that's just the way it is. But if we're throwing F9 into the mix now, that's going to shake things up.
Okay.
8 is going to drop a little bit because if I'm going to go to rewatch one of them, it's funny how Fast 5 just slips in there so easily. There's just something about Jordana Brewster driving that car in the very beginning of a movie that I'm like, yep, this is my night now. And then if 6 finds its way on afterwards, whoops, how did that happen?
I know.
And I still love Fate of the Furious for the reasons we talked about, but it would not be number 1 now. The problem would be finding where 9 goes because, wow, that is so much movie. Every 16 movies packed into one. How is this real?
Yeah.
Who greenlit this, and where can I send them flowers?
Well, you will definitely be back for either a core installment or a pit stop or something. I also feel like I know that you said it earlier, I think we're all sort of thinking if that they keep saying it's going to end, who knows if it's actually going to end, whatever. But if it does, if they're like, this is the final core installment, I think we're going to have everyone back on at least one more time to give their official final core installment rankings, wherever that is at that time. But, that's years away. Because if 10 is going to be next year, I think 11 or 10-2 or whatever will be the year after that. We got nothing but time to get to these things. So,
and are they going to do more presents movies, or is that just going to be the only one?
We get at least Hobbs and Shaw 2. They greenlit it. They haven't. Yeah, they haven't shot it yet because pandemic happened. But it got greenlit right before the pandemic, as 9 was about to come out. And as they were about to start shooting 10, so everything's kind of pushed back. We haven't heard anything lately, but they told us we were going to do a second one.
I'm probably in the minority, but I really want Fast and Furious Presents just the Shaw family and all of them.
Fine by me.
We got Luke. We got every single Shaw family character we've seen, including Helen Mirren and Vanessa Kirby, and just a whole lot of Statham. And it's just, that's the movie. I don't care what the plot is. I don't care if it's just them sitting in a room and cursing at each other for 2 hours, or a webcam of them stuck in a room for 24 hours and they're not even in character. That's, I really want that.
I will say that I think our listeners have finer taste than the general public, because Joe picked Homefront for a film club that we run this week, and it is not going over well. People are not very enthusiastic about the movie or Statham as an actor. So
yeah, they're really down on Statham, which was something that I wasn't expecting. But
right.
I'm not saying he's Brian Cox, but he's. Do I really love watching him? Yeah,
that's what
I thought. One of those actors, he pops up, I'm like, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets my weak and feeble motor running. I can't tell you why.
Sure.
but yeah, I do anyway.
Well, thank you once again, Brian, so much for joining us, and I do look forward to having you back, because I want to hear these. I'm glad that we sort of teased the rankings. We don't have them now, so next time we will get them. So for sure, please and thank you. But
yeah, when watching, it's hard not to think of you guys. So
well, thank you.
Oh,
that's all we want.
Heart hand connection situation going on.
Speaking of heart hand connection, Joe, next week we have Tokyo Drift, which we just watched.
Yes.
An extra time this lap to do the commentary for, but it feels like we haven't seen that in forever. So I'm very much looking forward to watching Tokyo Drift next week, because it'll be good.
Yep.
For all things Too Fast, Too Forever, go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/TooFast2Forever, or at TooFast2Forever on Twitter and Instagram. Email us, family@cageclub.me. Oh, remember, go vote, cageclub.me/bracket, vote in the Too Fast, Too Forever Hall of Fame. Determine who gets enshrined immortality. Who's going to join Vin and Brian and Sunk and Han? I'm mixing up actors and characters, but who's going to join those three in our Immortality Hall of Fame? Immortan Joe, not on the ballot, but Immortan Joe-tality. TooFast2Forever.com, cageclub.me/bracket. Do that thing. TooFast2Forever.shop for our merch. And come back next week for Tokyo Drift. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too.
And that was Brian Silliman of Return of the Pod. And we'll end Men in Black International. Don't forget that. And we'll tell you all about it
when we see you